Hello everyone, welcome back to the DMside. Today we're going to be picking up where we last left off. Did the characters manage to find the right nimble right? Let's do it. Alright, so in our last video, you would have known that the players kind of had a bit of a down moment where they found some nimble rights, but they weren't the right ones, and then their trail kind of went cold and we all felt a little bit defeated. So playing off of the players feeling defeated, the characters also felt defeated. So we actually implemented a month's downtime, and it's kind of a way to represent that the leads have gone cold, they're not quite sure what to do now. It's very cinematic in a way. So it was really nice to have a moment to kind of breathe. So in the downtime, we started with the business. We rolled all the rolls for the business. They came up profiting every single time, and we realized that rolling for the business isn't actually that fun at all. I personally think that the business rolls need to have more, I don't know, complications, different rewards. I understand it's a business, so it just runs on money, but even the gold reward isn't really worth a month. Two players who are making hundreds of gold, and maybe that's me as a DM who gives these rewards, but I'm also running the rewards in the book, and so they've got a lot of money because of it. So personally, I think that the business table needs to be taken into account and maybe modified and just upscaled a bit, seeing as though it's pretty old. It's been sitting in the Dungeon Master's Guide since released, what, 5-6 years ago. So it could do with a bit of a touch up. So moving on from the business, we had Hootie in his downtime. He did a bit of crime quite successfully, and then he went about his own business, which was very interesting and very nice. So nothing really too crazy to report there. After that, we did have Gianna, who wanted to start dabbling in poisons. So side note, in the Dungeon Master's Guide, there is a table of poisons. So DMs, if your players are really interested in making poisons or potions of poison, and you want to give them a bit more variety, give them the table of poisons that are in the DMG, because I had never seen them before. So a player, Gianna, asked me that he wanted to make a potion of poison. I went, well, I better figure out how that is going to work in downtime. And then I came across that table and went, all right, here's the thing. Do you want to make a potion of poison, or do you want to make vials of poison that are ingested or inhaled or only through touch? Those sorts of things. And that just opened up a lot more for us. So he went and he found some sketchy people down in some black market areas, and he actually managed to buy some ingredients from Schemo Weird Bottle. And so I actually had placed him there so that way he would feel more comfortable setting up an ambush later on, because they had a job to kill him, and thought, well, if he can create a rapport with him, he might feel like this is an option. And we'll get to that in a minute. So moving after that, we did have Damien. Damien was selling potions, he was making potions, and he's been doing that all his downtime. So he's got a good business going. Sparrow, our forcibly entered Zentarum, he went about helping everyone because he really wants to make friends with everybody in the group. He really wants to not have them owe him, but he wants to really make them feel like he's on their side, which is really good because, to be fair, the Zentarum kind of treat him like he's a bit of a goof, but they know that at the end of the day, he's actually quite smart in what he's doing. Finally, we did have Watch. Now, Watch had the more detailed downtime. It took quite a while, but it was really worth it in the end. It was figuring out where he came from as a Warforged. So he always thought that he was just created for the Day of Wonders by his creator, Tesla. But in fact, there was this entire backstory, which I'm not really going to go into too much because it really would take a very long time. And it's heavily homebrewed to make sense in our world. And I do personally think I kind of went overboard with it and made it too detailed when it really just needed a little bit of, well, this is why they're here. So the main gist of it is, long ago, there were the great empire of the Netherese people, and if you would like me to do a video on the Netherese people, feel free to comment, maybe like the video. Let me know that you'll want that coming up in future videos. The Netherese people, way back when, had the ability to cast 12th level spells. And that became a big problem because you could essentially, literally, actually steal or borrow, I guess, the power of a god. Now that became a huge problem for the gods themselves. The whole weave was broken at one point. Once it was put back together by Mistra, the new god of the Arcane weave, she actually capped it at level 9 spells and went, you can't do it anymore. So the homebrew that I kind of came up with is that the Netherese people had a lot of battles that they were doing. They ended up casting 12th level spells to open portals to other realms and ask for assistance. or at least give that option for more people to come in. So the Warforged actually did come in as assistants to help fight their wars, and then they were deactivated when I think it was the Time of Troubles or the Second Spell Plague or the Second Sundering. There's so many different things, and again, there's more videos to come if you'd like. So basically he then was deactivated when the Weave crashed, and then he was reactivated through a lot of work because Tesla managed to do a lot of things, work with a lot of people, and essentially revive him from his great slumber. So here he is in the world now, hundreds of years later, thousands. I think the Netherese people were around in 350 RD, I think it is, and we're now in 1491. Anyway, the point is, we now have a backstory for how the Warforged got into our world. There's plenty out there online of what other people have done, and I looked at a lot of them. They're really great options. If you really want to have a Warforged in your game, I'd suggest looking at them. So, moving on from the downtime, the players had to do something. They decided that let's just have a little win. Let's deal with Schemo Weird Bottle, which I thought was fantastic because I'd actually planned for him to kind of be the next Link if they needed it. So he was actually going to have information if they captured him on Austral Floxen being stuck in Gralhund Villa. They were going to have maybe a map or a letter, just something to help them be pushed in that direction, because that's kind of where they do need to go next. I mean, that's what really flings you into Chapter 4. So, just as I had expected, because Giorno had a little rapport with him now, they set up this meeting for Giorno to buy some very expensive vials of poison. Once they got there, they ambushed him and attacked, and it went pretty quickly. The players did manage to kind of lock him down. They surrounded him. Now, once he got surrounded, even though he does have a decent amount of health, he was already damaged, and I decided that, yes, he could turn invisible and just risk getting hit, or he could cast Fly and fly away, but then he would definitely take opportunity attacks, and he might actually go down. So at the end of the day, I got to use Cone of Cold on some of my players. It didn't put anyone down, which is great. It did put them very close. The only reason Giorno didn't go down is because he has the Half-Orc trait where he drops to 0, he sits at 1, just for one more big go. So that happened, and then Damien just went, you know what, I'm casting a spell, we're going to silence this area. Silence the area, and then they wailed on him and killed him. They threw his body in a bag of holding. They escaped the City Watch and the Griffin Cavalry, who were already on their way from the Cone of Cold attack. And then 10 days later, they came back. They laid low for 10 days. They came back and they buried his body in the snow, poured a bunch of alcohol on him to make it look like this was just a drunken accident. So I figured that's pretty good. I could really pursue that some more, and that'd be a bit of an issue. But I really just went, you know what? They really earned this. That was a good idea. And they'd already decided that the next step was to go to Gralhund Villa because they remembered that some of the information they were given was that someone was seen fleeing the scene after taking something from a dwarf's body in the fire, and that person fled the scene with a burnt side to their face. Then there's rumors that the Gralhunds were infiltrated, or somebody broke into their villa. However, everyone said, no, sorry, that didn't happen. And so the City Watch didn't investigate it any further. So the players went, well, that's where we come in. As D&D players, we know that is the hook. We know we're meant to go in there. We're not going to just pretend this didn't happen. We are going to go and check it out. So, how do we get in? They decided, let's not just waltz on in and pretend like we should be at a noble's house. Let's get an invitation, or let's get an audience with them. And who can help us with that? One of our contacts, Raynar Neverember. So they went to Raynar Neverember, and he set up a meeting with them later in the afternoon. And when they went there, I decided I'm not going to bother with this meeting. That's not what happens in the book. I'm just going to do what happens in the book. And right now, there is a battle. So they heard the battle coming from the front gates. They had to scale over the wall because they couldn't get through the arcane lock, though Hootie tried and did very well, but unfortunately just didn't manage to get through it. They climbed over, they ran in, and that's when battle commenced. The rest of the night was just fun because it was this great battle. We haven't really had any fighting in Waterdeep for most of the campaign, or at least it wasn't like a lot. It wasn't heavy battle. I think the last time we had heavy battle was way back in like session 2 or 3, where they dealt with the scarecrows. So this was refreshing, and the players really got to utilize what they had at their disposal in terms of battle. So they ran in, they dealt with the 2 Zhentarim guards that were in the main room straight away, went upstairs, saw Lady Gralhund, figured out that she was really more worried about the city watch coming than what was actually happening. And so they knew she was a bit sus. Lady Gralhund sus. And then they managed to, at the time, go, well, the Zhentarim are the big baddies here, we're going to kill them, and we're going to save Lady Gralhund, and we're going to get answers later. They didn't realize that Axel Floxen and Hootie's assassin were there, and also the Black Viper was there. So it was this huge battle, and the Black Viper really did nearly die. She went into the room, the assassin jumped out from behind a curtain in a bathtub, getting advantage on his attack, plus Unseen Attacker, which was a critical hit, and really dealt some damage. Luckily, she had 15 hit points left, and then she retreated as everyone else came in, and then they managed to kill the assassin. So Hootie's assassin is dead, Axel Floxen is dead. They found Lord Gralhund totally fine, and because he's a big wuss, he blurted out everything that was going on. Lady Gralhund realized that she's kind of in a tight situation now. The Griffin Cavalry were coming, the City Watch were coming, and they kind of came to they came to an understanding and went, okay, great. I'm going to tell you exactly where I sent the stone because I can't deal with this problem. You need to help me figure this out. And I don't think they helped them in the end, which was crazy. So they figured out that the stone was being taken to the graveyard in the city. And that was the end of the session. We stopped there, and next week we're going to figure out what happens in chapter 4. So if you really enjoyed this video, feel free to check out any of the other ones. I think they're here, or maybe they're here. The point is, check it out, and I'll see you next week.